C-9 makes reference specifically with hate symbols to public spaces. Just to confirm, does that include the internet?
Generally speaking, the law will apply equally online as it does in real communities.
My name is Nico Lagan, and I'm too conservative for the conservatives. My co-host Rob Ambrose, not woke enough for the... Man, my microphone is messing up so bad.
Jeez, sounds like
I have an echo in my mic. I'm literally hearing myself.
Oh,
delayed.
Okay. That's super annoying. That happened to me before once.
I'll be right back.
Yep.
Just bring John on. I'll be right back.
Yeah, guys. Well, as Nico will be back here in a second, but we have a special guest here tonight. We have John Carpe from the Justice Center. I'm going to bring John in because I always get the name wrong. The Justice Center for Fundamental Freedoms.
Constitutional freedoms.
Constitutional freedoms. Yes,
yeah.
Thanks, John. As you could see, Nico had a bit of technical difficulties. He'll be back here in a second, but. John, you're going to hear talk about the new bill. What is it? Bill C-10, is it?
12. C-12.
C-12. And this is the bill that you first spoke to with us about a couple months back, C-2. Is this basically that bill stripped down?
Yes, it's exactly that. So Bill C-2, which they called the Strong Borders Act, I think it should be called the Strong Surveillance Act. Bill C-2 had some middle-of-the-road provisions, take it or leave it, the type of things that reasonable people could agree on, disagree on, but changes to the immigration and refugee policies, changes to, I guess, strengthen the borders more in line with probably to appease President Trump.
Sure.
Which whether we had a liberal or a conservative government, you've got certain political realities that that you have to abide by. Anyway, so Bill C-2, the Strong Borders Act, had sections on changing the refugee asylum seeking process, changing immigration policies. And on top of that, they had other provisions like giving Canada Post the authority to open letter mail, creating a whole new piece of legislation called the Authorized Access to Information Act, which would empower government officials to search the cell phones and computers of people. Hi, Nico. I'm just going through Bill C-2, just kind of a little recap. So it was a lot of warrantless searches, right, which is of grave concern to people across the political spectrum. I don't think
absolutely.
It's not a left-wing, right-wing thing.
Nope.
Where, traditionally for the past 158 years, we have struck, I think, generally a good balance between the right to privacy and the right of Canadians to enjoy their own private property. Mm-hmm. And the need of law enforcement to get the job done. So if the police suspected that Mark Smith, my apologies if there's any Mark Smiths listening.
There's probably a few out there.
If the police thought that Mark Smith was possessing, creating, selling, distributing child pornography, they could go into court with an affidavit on which they could be cross-examined and say in the affidavit, we have some good information on Mark Smith. We think he's trafficking child pornography, but we want the court's permission to bust into his home unannounced and seize his computer, or we want his permission to tap his, listen in on his cell phone conversations or monitor his emails, etc. And the court would give permission on a very narrow selective basis, only Mark Smith, only for these purposes. Right.
And so this is the traditional way, right?
Traditional way.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
So you need
safeguards.
If you want to search somebody's computer, if you want to bust into somebody's home to search for drugs or grab their entire computer, you need a search warrant. Yep. So warrantless searches are a big problem. And there's a lot of Supreme Court rulings that over decades that have always upheld this as a fundamental charter right, that we all have a right to be free from state surveillance unless there's compelling reasons and it's a very narrowly targeted and justified for law enforcement type of thing. We have a right to be free from unreasonable search and seizure so that the government cannot be listening in to our phone conversations or anyway. So Bill C-2 is of grave concern on that front for privacy rights. So Canada Post gets the authority to open letter mail without a warrant. Government officials of all kinds get to search computers without a warrant. The federal government gets new powers to order the larger Rogers and Bell and large companies get ordered to turn over their subscriber information with IP addresses without warrant. It's all this warrantless search stuff that has apparently 300 different groups have called for Bill C-2 to be withdrawn.
Wow. I mean, as you say, it's nonpartisan. You know, we've got Chris H in the comments, and he's a liberal, but he says, just when I started to wrap my head around this one bill, the government has a new one to throw at us. And we've got people from the right and left that watch the show, and this is one of those things that it's really a nonpartisan thing, right? This is just fundamental basic freedoms.
Yeah. So what the government's done, very clever. So the Conservatives said they would vote against Bill C-2 in its current form. Now, the Liberals know that a lot of the immigration and refugee provisions would likely be supported by the Conservatives, so they can get it through the House of Commons. But the Conservatives said if in the current form, with all these provisions, you know, warrantless searches, empowering all kinds of government officials to invade our privacy, they were going to vote against it. The NDP was going to vote against it. The Bloc, the Green Party, I don't know. Anyway, so now the Liberals have brought in C-12, which has just the border security and refugee content from Bill C-2. That's put forward in Bill C-12. It's not going to generate, maybe the NDP might be against it, but and maybe the Bloc as well. I don't know, but it should probably be able to get through with one or more opposition parties supporting it. So Bill C-12 is less controversial. Okay. But then C-2 is still on the table. It's still on the table. There's still
I was going to ask.
Lower priority. Yeah, lower priority.
Okay.
And this is the problem, right? They didn't remove Bill C-2. They left it there, see if it would pass. If they're able to negotiate it through.
I assumed that meant they scrapped it.
No, they didn't. No. They didn't remove it. They're just pushing Bill C-12, knowing that they removed the biggest issues, as John is talking about, like the $10,000 limit is gone now.
Yeah.
The Canada Post can't, without a warrant, open your mail. There's the installing spyware on all electronic equipment. That's not there anymore. So they basically, everything that us three have spoken about many times before, they seem to have removed it. Frankly, making it hard on immigrants to come here, you'll never hear me complain about that. Let's be truly honest about this. So are you satisfied with what you're seeing from Bill C-2, Bill C-12, sorry? Or do you still see problematics that we should be reviewing that the Conservatives are not addressing?
Well, in Bill C-12, so the new smaller bill just on the border issues, I need to look into it a bit further to see if there's still a provision there that gives the government power to inspect goods destined for export, whether they can do that everywhere throughout Canada and not just at the borders, because that would be, and I apologize, I haven't had a chance to complete that research yet. That could be problematic if the government, anytime anything is, goods for export. So if somebody in Montreal is selling something to the Japanese and they put it on a truck and the truck is going across Canada, but it's goods destined for export. So then the government can just search the truck anywhere, or if there's a warehouse in Winnipeg where you temporarily have your goods that are destined for export somewhere else. We have to be careful not to give draconian search powers to government.
I believe it's still in there. If I'm not mistaken, that is still in there. I need to research it more word for word and identify.
Word for word, yeah.
Identify the exact provisions that you and I had spoken about before. But from what I gather, I did not see.
Was that the part where they said
removal.
like anything could be a warehouse or something like that? Like your
They
garage.
did
could be a
define what a
warehouse?
warehouse was, and they were also saying that if you have, let's say, I use T-shirts, for example. I have T-shirts that I will export throughout the world, let's say the US. It could be they have the right, CBSA would have the right to track any portion of the transport from my warehouse, that's my basement, to the trucker that transported it from A to B, wherever was stored in his truck and in his own warehouse. Turns out the warehouse is attached to his. Do you like it's just a blanket statement to say wherever that good, if a good is set for export, you're kind of screwed, because we can now, CBSA could now check any segment of that property, or that I just can't remember what the exact word is. I'm gonna try to find
Yeah,
it.
it wasn't warehouse. It was something. But yeah, the
No,
point was
that's not the part. Like, the warehouse is defined as pretty much anything, but the
Okay.
part that was insane is that they were able to stop or to inspect whatever chain of transport that was between you and the recipient. So
Yeah,
your
so-
warehouse, your basement, the truck that transported it, where it was
If the
stored.
T-shirt sat in your
prior-
garage, they can go into your house now, and yeah, or at least
that's
left
where
the
it did
door open-
say.
left the door open for
Yeah.
it.
So if we
Yeah.
remove that part, John, the same part that that we're talking about right now, you would be satisfied-ish with Bill C-12?
Yes, well, I wouldn't object to it. And look, the reason is the Justice Center, our focus is on the fundamental charter freedoms of Canadians. So that's the freedoms of conscience, religion, expression, association, peaceful assembly, travel, mobility, also bodily autonomy, the right to not be pressured or coerced by state authority into getting a vaccine or other medical treatment without your fully voluntary, fully informed consent. And so that's our focus. Now, that's not to say that immigration is not important. Immigration is very important. It's just not an issue that the Justice Center takes a position on. I've got my personal views. And the other big one, of course, is refugees. We've had a practice for decades now where, but here's the issue on refugees. Some people believe that the moment somebody sets foot in Canada and says, I am a refugee, and the definition of refugee is if you are fleeing political or religious persecution.
Yeah, it's not poverty.
Wanting to have a higher living standard or thinking that Canada is a nicer place to live in than the country where you now live, that's not a refugee. A refugee is fleeing political or religious persecution. Now, the view that has prevailed in the past is that the moment somebody sets foot in Canada, they are to be treated and regarded as a refugee immediately. So they already get all kinds of rights.
Wow.
Okay, that's one viewpoint. That's been what's been mostly the policy of the government for decades.
If not officially, at least in practice.
At least in practice, yeah.
Okay.
The other viewpoint is, no, you're on probation. We're going to process your claim, but you don't necessarily have this whole list of rights.
Yeah.
The moment that you enter Canada and claim to be a refugee, you don't have the refugee rights.
You don't need
Unless
to be put
and
up in a
until-
hotel.
Unless and until you have been deemed to be a refugee. So we've accepted your claim and said, yes, we agree that you are fleeing political or religious persecution. Until that moment, you don't have a whole bunch of rights. And so that's kind of the difference of opinion. So I think you have a shift with this legislation from what's been the practice, where you get treated like a refugee with all kinds of rights from the moment you set foot in Canada, moving towards a system where it's like, well, wait a minute, not necessarily. While we are examining your claim and doing, investigating whether this is true, that you are in fact fleeing religious or political persecution, while we're examining this, you don't have a whole bunch of rights. So that's probably the shift. And, I'm fine with that.
It's a necessary shift, in my opinion. And it's kind of surprising to see the Liberals, put out that kind of legislation.
Oh, I think
It's-
a lot of their traditional supporters are very upset with the Liberal Party over this.
Really?
They see it as a big betrayal.
Oh, Jesus. That's the one good thing they're doing. And they're getting shit on by their base.
By the way, John, the provision is still there. The word, the expression I was looking for was chain of possession. So basically, it retains the provision that enhances the Canada Border Services Agency's authority to inspect goods destined for export, included broader access along the chain of possession. So the thing about the warehouse is still there. They still have access to any of the chain of possession from point A to where it started to destination, well, at least until it leaves the country for the final destination. But yeah, they didn't remove that, and I've never heard anybody else talk about it either. We addressed it. I know I talked about it many times, but it's not something that the Conservatives have ever addressed. I don't know if the Conservative are just don't care. Do they even read the bills? I'm really starting to wonder if politicians actually look at the bills or not. If they're just like, oh, I see a couple of things because I saw a post somewhere that seems wrong. I'm going to talk to my lawyer. Is that true? Oh, it's true. Oh, well, if nobody talks about it, it seems that politicians, like Rob and I joke about this all the time, but it seems that every time we complain about something that Pierre Poilievre is doing wrong, 2 days after he corrects himself and starts doing it. So it looks like that wouldn't be a surprise, right? When you have people that get millions of views on their content every day, every month, you have people that are paying attention. And if you're smart, you pay attention to those guys because we have access to people, right? But
well, that would vary. It would vary from MP to MP. I mean, some MPs are going to be sharper than others, right? The democratic process doesn't guarantee necessarily that you always get the most. I like what Winston Churchill said: democracy is a terrible system, except for all the others, which are worse. Yeah. So, I'm
talking about it, like zero people talking about that provision in Bill C-2 because I've never heard it. I've never heard a politician address that one. And to me, that scares me because that literally means anytime you have something destined for outside of the country, you're basically at the mercy of CBSA. They can show up at any time, inspect your stuff because they don't like you. Really. No,
you have a valid point. And maybe it got lost. I mean, part of the problem here is that the government has this army of bureaucrats that can spend time putting together a huge 140-page bill, and they have hundreds, if not thousands, of people to work on that. Maybe if it's just the legislative part of the Justice Ministry, we're talking hundreds rather than thousands. But so you have hundreds of people that can work on this bill and put it together, and that's their full-time job. So it's very hard for like the three of us or any Canadian that's listening, if you've got your job and you got your bills to pay and your mortgage to pay and your family to raise, etc., it's hard to stay on top of it. Now, the opposition politicians are, I guess, better positioned than the average Canadian because it is their full-time job. But even they can get bamboozled when you get this tidal wave, you get this 140-page bill C-2 is put in front of you. There's so much there that things like making cash illegal in amounts over 10,000, warrantless searches, subscriber data being handed over to government, Canada Post getting the right to open your letter mail. All these things are going to get more attention than other legitimate flaws, like the expanded powers to just inspect anything that's destined for export.
I get your point.
So John, like, I know that you're at the Justice Center. You guys are more worried about the legal aspect, but I assume that you seem quite sort of up to date on the political aspect too. I guess I assume you guys probably followed these bills through Parliament. Do you know what was it that caused them to split this bill? Was it pressure from the Conservative Party, or was it
No.
what? Do you know if there was a lot of just people writing into their MP?
There was massive opposition from Canadians that, and I think the Liberals saw it was coming from all quarters. I mean, if the Justice Center was the only group in Canada opposed to, this bill or any other bill, by itself, that's not going to carry the day.
Sure.
But here you had, for example, the Canadian Civil Liberties Association, which is kind of they're good on some issues. They were in favor of lockdowns. They didn't really object to the vaccine passports. They're very heavy on, their only issue with lockdowns was that they said that women, gay people, and dark-skinned people suffered more from lockdowns than did men and straight people and light-skinned people.
It's funny how
other than that,
in every situation.
Yeah, they weren't against the massive violations, severe violations of our fundamental charter freedoms through lockdowns. They were okay with it for the most part. But here on this issue, when C-2 came out,
once you got intersectionality involved.
They were aggressively for our privacy rights and saying, we don't want the government to have all these new surveillance powers and powers to gather information about citizens. So the Canadian Civil Liberties Association was really good in opposing Bill C-2. All kinds of different groups, Professor Michael Geist, law professor at the University of Ottawa, was very outspoken. He's not known to be a conservative libertarian freedom warrior type of guy, but he was very much against Bill C-2. Law professors have spoken out against it. So I think it was a combined effort of Canadians from across the spectrum that contacted their MPs. They've backed off. They're still going to make a go of it, but more of a half-hearted attempt. So they're going to try to put C-12 at the forefront and try to get that passed first, because the government can decide what the priorities are, right? If they got 20 bills before the House of Commons, they can decide which ones they're going to push the hardest.
Yep.
So they'll try to get Bill 12 through first, so they can get the border security stuff, again, presumably, and to make the Trump administration happy. So they can get that border stuff done first. And then if there's time left over before Christmas, they'll keep on pushing Bill C-2 as well.
So
we should not let our guard down.
The towel in. They're still officially the Liberal Party still wants C-2.
And the ministers publicly said they will continue to push ahead with Bill C-2.
Oh wow!
If Bill C-12 has already passed, then from Bill C-2 they will amend Bill C-2 and take out the provisions that have already passed. So you just get
yes.
But so we have to be on guard, because if you combine that with the Bill C-8, where the federal cabinet minister can kick you off the internet, Bill C-9, massive increase in the number of hate speech prosecutions, and then you've got, past 2 years ago, the Online Streaming Act, which gives the CRTC control over the internet to make sure that there is enough Canadian content, which they get to decide what that means. Like we could be a police state by Christmas.
Yeah.
I wanted to get your opinion on something, because I don't know if you saw the first video that I played at the beginning, but Sean Fraser, our Justice Minister, has admitted last week that under Bill C-9, Canadians could get arrested or visit by the police, just like we're seeing in the UK right now, because Bill C-9 applies to not only public spaces, but to the internet as well. Were you surprised that he admitted that, or do you think that was a got you moment? Because he seemed, what was it, O'Keefe? Is it O'Keefe? No, it's not O'Keefe. I can't remember what the name of the guy is. Andrew Layton, that was actually questioning him, and actually he was doing a good job at doing it. Like, he was being very polite, but hold on, what are you trying to say here? Were you surprised that Sean Fraser admitted that? Because I knew that to be true. If you read the bill, I've had disagreements, by the way, and I've had disagreements, I'm not going to name names, but I've had disagreements with people that are massive in that space that get arrested for that type of stuff, and they're like, there's no problem with that bill. And we had like a 30-minute conversation. I'm like, bro, like, what the fuck, man? Like, I disagree with you completely, because this is problematic. And Sean Fraser just fucking admitted that you can get arrested for something that you post online.
Well, what's happening in Britain is just terrifying. 12,000 people for intemperate speech. Like in Britain, you could still get away with saying, you could say something like, I disagree with current immigration policies, and I think this and this and this, and maybe you could get away with that and the police don't come knocking on your door. But if you're a little bit less academic and maybe you're a little bit more grassroots in your speech, or, you know, kitchen table English, as I call it. And if you say, you know, there's, you know, if you were to say in Britain, we got too many immigrants from the wrong countries coming in. And, you know, we shouldn't have people from, you know, countries A, B, and C because they can't adjust to our culture. Like, you know, it's really terrifying. So Bill C-9 is a step in that direction because it gets rid of the current requirement that the Attorney General has to review prior to any hate speech prosecution taking place.
The police
which means that the police, you know, normally for other crimes, and this is the way it should be for other crimes, it's the local police, local Crown prosecutors, whether it's Ottawa, Montreal, Halifax, Calgary, whatever, local police, local prosecutors, they decide whether it's shoplifting or murder or whatever the crime is, they decide to prosecute or not, and they do that locally. But for hate speech prosecutions, because there's a danger there, and hate is a subjective emotion, you can't. Bill C-9 is just a joke for trying to define hate, you know, saying that disdain and dislike are okay, but vilification and detestation are not okay. You know, how is the average Canadian supposed to navigate through that, you know? So, so you've got this problem with Bill C-9. It gets rid of the review by the Attorney General. So now it's local police, local Crown prosecutors. And so, yeah, if you are saying something on social media that local police, or maybe they're just following up on a complaint, you know, somebody complains that they see this and they don't like it. They say it's hateful. So the police investigates. Maybe the police will come to your house and knock on your door, and they won't lay charges, but they will say, you know,
they woke you up at 2 a.m. Maybe they took you to the station.
Even if it was during the day, you know, they come and they say, we've had a complaint about your social media posts. We've decided that we're not going to charge you with hate speech, but we would, however, caution you to be more careful in what you say.
That's so.
This is what, right? So that's the whole problem with Bill C-9 is you're going to get police knocking on the doors of Canadians, and very often they're not going to arrest, they're not going to prosecute. But police will knock on doors, and say, look at you got to watch what you're saying. Well, do you think most Canadians, 9 times out of 10, after the police has knocked on your door and told you to be more careful about what you say on social media or on your podcast, your video cast, most Canadians will comply with that, and so you get this cold, wet blanket.
Yeah.
Sorry, John, the fingers weren't for you, but that's my
for
response.
The police. Yeah.
Hold on, John. Since we have you on the call, and I know that one day this will happen to me, would that play against me if I did that? If the police did come, if prior I said that to the police that you can knock on my door for posts that you don't like, I don't really give a fuck. You can do whatever you want. Bring it at the end of the day. Does that play against me?
Probably wouldn't help you.
No. Well, yes. Okay. It's a fair question. Generally speaking, as a general rule, if you are ultimately going to get convicted of a crime, it is better to have expressed remorse. So let's take a different example. If you know you lost your temper, you beat somebody up, you're better off to say that you're sorry and say it early on. And, you know, then the remorse will be taken into account to reduce the penalty that you would have gotten. So that's true in most situations. Now, here is a very special, very different situation, because here you have an unjust law that is seeking to censor you, and you have the state against you. You probably, even if you were a very good actor, you probably couldn't fake your remorse anyway. So you might as well not bother. In this kind of a scenario, there's no point. Now, in order to make yourself look a little bit better, maybe, you know, don't raise the 2 middle fingers, but you could say, without raising the 2 middle fingers, you could say, look, I think I'm a free citizen in what is supposed to be a free country. I will say whatever I want. If you want to charge me with hate speech or anything else, you go ahead and charge me, but I am not making any changes to my current practice of speaking my mind. Thank you. Have a good night, and close the door, and that's fine.
Maybe
Yeah.
I should have. I'm going to rephrase my question. Would you still defend me if I had raised my fingers and say I will not comply to hate speech laws because I have the right to speak the truth?
Yes, although we have limited resources at the Justice Center. One of the things that bugs me about my job is that we actually say no to about 90% of the incoming requests, because even though we have 10 lawyers across the country, which is wonderful, but in a country of 40 million people, 10 lawyers is not very much. So we get all these requests for legal assistance on our website, and we say no to 90% or more. Now, we look for sympathetic clients. So we look for people that are, as presentable as possible.
We're not raising the middle fingers to the police.
So if you wanted our help, you'd be I'm not saying you wouldn't get our help if you raise the middle fingers, but it's probably better to not do that, but at the end of the day, it's not a big deal either way, but I would recommend against it. Because
as your lawyer, I cannot recommend you flip the police.
But at the same time, John, I think we can agree that we are at a pivotal moment in Canadian history. And if all it takes is for a guy like me, big tattooed guy that will not back down, to show his fingers, to wake people up, I'm going to do it. At the end of the day, you could tell me not to,
yourself.
but that's me.
Yeah.
Well, that's you.
So do we? You see a direct parallel then between what's going on in the UK and these kind of these bills, these laws.
It's just, we're moving towards them. I mean, I'm not going to say that Bill C-9, by itself is going to turn us into the United Kingdom. That's not but it's a step towards becoming like the United Kingdom by removing the current requirement. In terms of hate speech being illegal on the internet, that's been the case since, these laws were passed, I think, before the internet became widely used by people. So it's always been, if you put a post on the internet and said, death to the whatever group, religious group, ethnic group, they should all be killed or something. If you wrote that on social media, you could already be charged without Bill C-9 passing. It's already been.
That's for threats, right? Not necessarily hate speech. That's just threatening violence.
It's been a crime in Canada for decades to willfully promote hatred against an identifiable group that's identifiable on the basis of
not being
race,
white.
ethnicity.
Yes.
Well, practically speaking, I mean, that's already a crime. So this is not really new. Like, you could get in trouble already for something that you post on the internet, even without Bill C-9 passing. The big difference, though, is now it's going to be a feeding frenzy, or can become a feeding frenzy, where local police, local Crown prosecutors don't need to have their discretion reviewed by the Attorney General. You're likely to see, if Bill C-9 passes, you're likely to see way more hate speech prosecutions all over Canada than what you've ever seen before.
I've got just one more question. Sorry, Nico.
Just to add to what you were going to say, that was one of the complaints of Sean Fraser, is that there's not enough people getting prosecuted for hate speech because there's too many hoops to go through.
Restraints.
Yeah. That's the whole fucking point, jackass. That's the whole fucking point.
Yeah.
I don't want.
You mean safeguards, the civil protections? They call them loopholes.
Montreal has some of the worst cops in Canada, if you ask me. I don't want that purple-haired butch coming to my place because I said I don't believe that gay people should be allowed to adopt. I don't want that big butch to be the one responsible for, do I get prosecuted or not? Because we all know if she has that power, it ain't going to go well for me.
Well, and that's the whole problem, because there's police that some police maybe don't understand the full implications of what it's like to get prosecuted, but they will say, well, if you're not guilty, then the judge will acquit you, which is technically That's technically true, but it's like, what about the 9 months or 18 months or 3 years of legal proceedings that you have to go through, and you have this cloud hanging over your head, and you probably, because it's criminal charges, you probably want to get a lawyer because you don't want to get a criminal record, because criminal record is not nice to have because it can, makes it harder to travel to the US, et cetera, et cetera. Most people don't want a criminal record, so they pay big bucks for a lawyer. It's all understandable. So that's the problem, right? The police could say, well, this is, you're just going to get acquitted at the end of the day. So we're just going to go ahead with the prosecution. And it's like, no, that's not right.
No, I completely agree. I've just got one last question here, John. And this actually, so Wise Guy commenter, he says, the right way to fight unjust laws is for everyone who's charged to fight the charge in court and overwhelm the system. So this comment made me think of all the people you see in the UK who are actually getting sentenced to prison, like Lucy Connolly. I'm sure you're familiar with her. There's some other people who have said, certainly not polite things, but by no means things that should be, criminal. But the thing is they all seem to be pleading guilty and just allowing the system to shove them in the pipeline. And would you recommend that these, because it seems to me, I'd take that to a jury trial any day of the week. What's your, do you think they're being advised poorly?
I don't know there's one case I heard of where there was not a strong defense at trial. I've seen that happen in Canada. There's one of the Justice Center cases, and I won't say which one because it would be criticizing. But there's a lawyer at the trial stage just did a horrible job, and then we took over on appeal and we lost the appeal. But the whole fact scenario was improperly laid out, and the lawyer at the trial level had accepted all kinds of things that were put into evidence that should have been excluded. Anyway, I don't know the ins and outs, but certainly overwhelming the system, it becomes very hard. It's like, for example, if we had lockdowns, okay, if you got a Walmart store with 200 people, right, and everybody's supposed to wear a mask. Yeah, 10% non-compliance. If you have 20 people in the Walmart that are not wearing a mask, it's impossible. They cannot get enough security guards and police officers to arrest 20 people, ticket 20 people, forcibly escort 20 people out of the store. That's with a 10% non-compliance. Even a 5% non-compliance, you get 10 people in Walmart not wearing a mask, it's difficult to enforce. Unfortunately, if you have only 1% non-compliance, so this would be 2 people out of 200 in the Walmart store, well then, there's somebody without a mask. Let's get the security guards. Let's call the cops.
Yes.
Let's go after them, right? So you need for a law you need non-compliance of 5%, 10% or more, and then you're in great shape. And that's what I hope the next time that there's unjust laws that require, injection with some substance that's supposed to be good for us, and masks and rallies and assemblies. If you get that 10% non-compliance, then it's next to impossible for the bad guys to enforce an unjust law.
Yeah.
As always, John, thanks for being here. We love to have you on. It's always great conversation. Thanks for letting me know that raising my finger is a good idea. So I will continue.
that's
Thanks for confirming what I was already thinking. But always a pleasure to have you on, John.
All right. Enjoy the rest of the night. Have a great rest of the day.
I appreciate it,
Bye,
John. Thanks for your time.
See you. Thanks. Bye-bye.
It's always good to have a guy like him
Yeah.
on
Always
the show
like when
to
John
talk
shows
about
up.
these things.
Yep.
Yeah, I
absolutely.
agree, man.
He was a little early though, right? He was supposed to be here at 8:30 or 9:30.
I don't remember. I was quite sick when I booked him, so I'm not sure if it was me. Either way, it doesn't matter, man. It's all good. It's all good. We got to talk about what he thought about Bill C-9 as well, because what Sean Fraser said is just insane. I don't know if you saw the video, but wow. He literally admitted that whatever that bill touches in real life, it will apply to the internet too. So
Yeah, that's gonna be scary.
you can find the bill. I wanted to play it, but we're gonna go over, so I won't. But it's Andrew Lawton has a 5-minute video on his X where he questions John Fraser, and he pretty much says it out loud that yes, it is a reality that if Bill C-9 goes through, we will now be possibly accused of hate speech for posts online. And you know, Sylvie, I don't know if she's still here, but Sylvie tagged us in this earlier. And to me, that's kind of along the same things. Like X is to test country display on profiles. Right now, it's just saying employee profiles for content verification, but they're talking about adding the country of origin to people's profiles. So let's say you're from Canada, it will say Canada. And it's not mandatory, or it will be mandatory because the information's varied. There's not that much information out, but from what I gather, it's not going to be mandatory.
Okay.
But if you don't say it, it will say something along the lines that you didn't want to mention it. And you know what bothers me is that
this going to be on X, but is this being pushed by the governments, or is this an X policy?
X, no, it's an X policy. It's being pushed by X directly. This to me, I did not see this as a restriction to a country per se. So
what's the logic behind it?
What I believe is the logic behind it, at least from the right-leaning people that I've seen their posts agreeing with this, is to try to identify bot farms that are somewhere in India. So but at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but guys, you don't understand technology. And I posted comments on a few of them, and I'm like, guys, all you need is a VPN, and you're not going to know where the fuck I'm from. So this doesn't do anything outside of putting more restrictions.
What's the potential downside here?
Well, if you putting restrictions on people like you and I, because so the first step is to say, we want to know which country you're from. If you don't want to tell us, that's fine. But we're going to identify your account as country unidentified. So potentially people will automatically believe that I'm a bot because I refuse to say where I'm from. That means they're kind of putting pressure on people to identify where they're from. And how will you prove? You know, you have a confirmed account on X, like I do on X, like I do on Instagram, like I do most places. But that means I had to provide a piece of ID from my government to say, this is my real name, this is my address, this is where I'm from, so that I'm authenticated. People know that I'm real. This is the exact same. I do it to get the check mark because it does give you access to some cool shit. Like Grok for free, for example, on X is one of the main reasons I do it. But it gives, it gives more faith. People, when they see my account, they see that blue mark, that blue check mark, they're like, okay, that guy, chances are he's not AI, he's real because he had to prove himself. Is that really what you want for everybody? Do you want everybody to have to prove who they are, where they're from, what their name is online? Or you believe that people should be allowed to be, what's the term I'm looking for
anonymous?
Here? They're, thank you, exactly. I believe that people have the right to be anonymous, and that is the first thing that opens the door. This is the first step to, you have to prove it, because you're going to be publicly shamed for being a wrong. You know that if you don't have that, my country's Canada, automatically if you post on somebody's post, I see it already right now. Oh, you guys are just a bunch of bots. You're not real, blah, blah, blah. They just destroy your argument because they just need to call you a bot. You're not real. You're not real. You're not real. You're a bot. You're not real.
It's weird. I mean, I don't personally I don't think this is like as dangerous as, the hate speech bills or anything like that. But
that's how it starts.
It's confusing.
But that's how it starts.
I don't know why Elon Musk did it. I mean, it's still a company, right? Like it's not, in my opinion, it's not the same as a country doing it. Like companies can do whatever they want, and other people can use their product or not use product. But oh, hey, Sasquatch, what's up, brother?
Motherfucker. Motherfucker. What's going on, Sasquatch?
Good to see you too, man. Where you been? Or did he not? He didn't come with us to the new time slot.
No, I don't know. But all to say that this is just the first step to censorship. It's the same way that Australia is pushing it. They have legislation now. By the end of the year, you will need, they said, oh, we don't want our youth, anybody below, I think it's either 16 or 18. I have to look again, but I think it was 16. Anybody under 16 are no longer allowed to be on social media. You know what? As an idea, I get it. But that's not the responsibility of government to put that in place. That should be the responsibility of the parents to say, guys, I don't want my kids to be online, because you can literally stop it if you wanted to. But what the people don't understand, the people that don't work in technology, the part they don't get is that in order to prove that those kids are below 16, is that everybody has to provide their information, and that's the problem. They sell it to you as in, we're trying to do it, we're trying to protect the children. But in order to protect they never tell you that in order to protect the children, we need to have ID from every single other users, because they don't disprove that you're below 18. They prove that you're above 18.
Yes, that's right.
And that means that everybody needs to comply. So by you saying, oh, it's such a great idea, we need to have our youth off of social media. I get it. I don't agree, but I get it why people would be for that. But they don't understand the way that that's achieved is by providing information for everybody else in order to prove. Because what does the 15-year-old have? They don't have a driver's license. They have a health card, which is not normally taken everywhere. Like, there's some places you need a driver's license in order to authenticate yourself. So what's this? This is the problem, and this to me is the first step. So they say, okay, you don't need to. Just put the country you're from. We'll trust you at the beginning. Then 6 months from now, it's like, yeah, you know what? You could say whatever you want. So we need proof that you're really from Canada. But during that time, people are getting shamed online for not having their country. So they're coercing people into doing it. And the next thing you know is, if you don't have the country in your profile, we will automatically assume you're a bot. This is not hard to believe. Remember 2 weeks to flatten the curve you need a fucking passport to go eat at the restaurant. Nobody told us that was the end of the line, but it's easy to see that this could potentially be what happens. And this is what I see when I see that, and I see guys from the right, they're supposed to be against censorship. I'm like, and they're like, yes, it's about time we're finally going to know who those bots are. Who cares who the bots are, bitch? Who cares? Who cares? They're going to be there no matter what. It's called VPN, dumbass. Not that hard to figure out.
Yeah, I don't really see that as a major problem that needs to be solved, is who the bots are. I mean, I also, again, X is, private company. It's not exactly the same as a government, but I mean, it's getting big enough, and these days, it has almost as much power as a government in some ways. Just social media in general. More. Yeah, it's interesting.
Of course, because they can do it throughout countries. It doesn't matter which country they are. But the thing is that, what's the next step? You think that governments are not going to find a way to utilize that information? Of course they will. Of course they will find a way to utilize that low tag that's been added to your account on X saying that you're from Canada. You know what geofencing is? I think I spoke about this on the show before.
Vaguely.
So geofencing is to say, imagine the next protest, right?
Yeah.
The government could say around that street, around that street, we're going to put a fence, which is it's a geographical fence that is done through a software to say everything that pings out of this, every cell phone that's there, I need to know what's their IP. I need to know the network they're on. I need to know who they belong to. So send requests to, here's 500 people, send a request to the different IPs. You can tell which IP belongs to which service provider. Send that to them who had that IP at that exact time. They can start doing it. You don't think that if we start tagging all of our profiles with Canada and it's now illegal to say certain things online, you don't think the UK is going to use that? Of course they will. Of course they fucking will. They'll find a way to use that tag in order to see what people are saying online that have that specific tag in their profile. Of course they will.
Yeah, I mean, as Chris H says, there's been a big dilemma in the U.S. whether social media platforms are platforms or publishers, and the power they have to censor or not. Twitter files is
They're
a
both.
huge issue with this. Yeah, it's a really interesting debate because
But they're
they are not government per se, but if they've gotten so big that they're as powerful, then certainly there should be some accountability there.
But do you know what Chris H is talking about? Because that's something I've talked
The
extensively
Twitter files?
in the past.
I'm familiar with the term.
No, but forget the Twitter files. So basically what Chris H is referring to is a big debate, and they will flip-flop depending on who is bringing them to court. But it's to know, is social media or the platform themselves like publishers, meaning that they are responsible for whatever is posted on their platform, or are they like a public space where they're just a place that people have opinions and we're not responsible for their opinions. They don't represent us. And what they keep on doing is, let's say that
like holding Twitter accountable for what someone says on Twitter.
So Meta banned me, my Facebook account, with a massive amount of followers because I was talking against the restrictions of COVID. I was saying that the platform itself was censoring conservative people like me. It turned out to be true, but those motherfuckers never gave me back my Facebook account. They refused to do it. So I could bring them to court and say, okay, Mr. Judge, Madam Judge, they claim to be a public space. That means they shouldn't be allowed to censor me because they're not responsible for what I say. They just provide the space. What they've done in the past, when that happens, they're going to say, oh, we're like a publisher, so we are responsible for whatever post is put on our platform.
When it
exactly. But then if they allowed something that is hateful
when they're being sued, they'll say, oh, hey, we're not a publisher.
We're a public place.
We're just a public space.
We're a public place. So they get to flip-flop between one and the other, and there's multiple cases for both sides. They just, if it's somebody that prones free speech, they'll call, we're like a publisher. If it's somebody that says, hey, you should have censored that hate speech because it hurt my feeling. Sorry, we're an open space. We're public space.
Nothing we can do, bro. Sorry. Yeah, exactly.
But they need to decide one. I agree with Chris at this point. Well, I don't know that that's what he's saying, but I'm pretty sure he'd agree with that. They need to pick it. They need to pick one. They need to pick, are they a publisher or are they an open space? And you know that they're
I don't even think it should
be an open space.
It should be up to us to decide what they're going to be classified as, because these are massive entities with enormous power, and they have the ability to fuck up our lives just as much as government does.
Yes.
But it's interesting.
This is what I love about this show. Chris H is a liberal. I'm a very conservative person, but we can always find. But see, again, somebody that's more liberal than I am. But this is what's so great about having those conversations. A lot of people don't realize that this is going on. And at the end of the day, they need to pick one. I think they should be an open space. I think they should be a public forum where everything can be said, and then
so they can't. They should not be allowed to be sued for what someone says. Yeah.
But that means they shouldn't be allowed to censor me either for saying something that they don't.
Exactly. Well, because if you declare them a publisher and you can sue them, then they have to censor you, right? Like, you can't even blame them for doing it, because if they can be sued for it, then they have to do that.
Yep.
So yeah, it's an interesting debate. But I don't know if who makes this final decision. I guess the courts will, but I hope that they lean more towards the public space. It's interesting that, and we'll get to Sylvie's comment there in a second, but it's interesting that Elon Musk even did this, right? Because he's supposedly the big free speech, advocate, the big free speech maven.
He does not give a fuck.
He's got his own agenda.
Did you see his new grok? There's you can have sexy women talking to you, half naked women.
It's like yeah.
So don't give me this shit that you care about people if you actually do that, because we don't need that.
Yeah, no,
we definitely don't need that.
No.
On one side, his site is not supposed to be filled with porn, yet it's filled with porn.
It's fucking wild, man. That is,
it's the worst.
That blows my
it's the
mind
worst
about
platform.
X. It's supposedly the global town square, and you'll scroll down, and every couple days there's like a dude getting
There's a
fucked
lot
in
of
the ass.
hookers.
Yeah,
There's a lot of hookers in the town square.
yeah. And there's like there'll be like hardcore porn, like penetration right there. It's like Jesus Christ.
Yep. But that's the thing, right? Again, I don't have a problem with it. At the end of the day, I don't have a problem with it. You understand what you're doing, but don't tell me that you want the best of people if you promote that. You don't. You're there to make money, right? I always remember I don't know, there's probably people old enough to remember a VHS versus Betamax, but you know why you remember Betamax and VHS. You're old enough for that, right?
Oh yeah.
So Betamax was better technology. But do you know why VHS won over Betamax, although the technology wasn't as good?
Why? I don't know.
Betamax was done by Sony. Sony refused to put porn on their platform. And guess what? Porn is fucking popular.
Of course.
Remember years after they did the Blu-ray versus the HD disc from Microsoft?
Yeah.
Sony was the Blu-ray. Guess what they did that time?
They put porn
They
on
allowed
it?
porn.
That's why Blu-ray won. Yeah. That is really. They learned their lesson.
Well, it's a fact. Sex sells. I don't think this is a surprise to anybody out there. If it is, goddamn, where the fuck have you been hiding? But
Absolutely. We'll take this comment here from Sylvie. She says, Rob and Nico, are you aware that a North Bay man is being convicted to 9 months in prison for anti-Semitic posts online? I am not. Is this is there more to the story? What's the context here?
yeah, I heard about it, but I did not know if it was true or not. Because you always need to do some research in order to confirm if that's true or not. But I'll check it out.
Yeah.
I'll check it out fast right now because we still have 3.5 minutes to go. So if you want to take another comment, I'll check it out right now.
Yeah, sure. All right. Let me see here. Trevor says, we need to have babies, lots of babies. Yeah, I think that ship has sailed. DNL, we need Betamax at home. Yes. Trevor, my phone's still attached to the wall. Jesus, brother, that's old. I remember being like a teenager, like talking to your girlfriend with that super long cord. You like go down the
I'm on the phone. Mom.
Yeah, I'm on the phone. That's hilarious. Islamic porn is awesome. Maybe true story. Actually, is Chris H still here? Because I wanted to talk about. He brought up. I didn't want to bring it up because John was here to talk about Bill C-9, but the hate speech bill. Apparently, there's a Muslim group opposing it, and because I had asked John or Chris just in the comments, and apparently it was. Because I was like, what's the major beef, right? Because you would think that they would be okay with this law because it would protect them. And that what they did, I think he said something like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, but he said something like they didn't like the crackdown on protests. So I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense. I'll try to find it, but that's an interesting. You wouldn't expect like a Islamic group to oppose the hate speech bills.
Hold on, I think I found it. Let's. I'm just gonna play this video super fast. We'll end it on that.
Yeah.
Here's what is this? This is CTV News. Yeah, I think this is CTV News reporting on what Sylvie was talking about.
With a precedent-setting sentencing in North Bay, where we start this Wednesday with a precedent-setting sentencing in North Bay, where a man found guilty of hate crimes for anti-Semitic propaganda will receive jail time. 51-year-old Kenneth Paulin was charged in June after a 7-month investigation by North Bay police. He faced charges of the willful promotion of hate against Jewish people and the willful promotion of anti-Semitism by condoning, denying, or downplaying the Holocaust. During the court case, the Toronto-based Friends of Simon Wiesenthal Center for Holocaust Studies provided an impact statement saying the online content spread hatred, repeated false conspiracy theories, and denied atrocities. It's the first time in Canada someone has received jail time for denying the Holocaust.
Holocaust denial is not just offensive. It's not just ignorant.
Who
It
cares?
is hate speech.
But like
Who cares?
And it fuels anti-Semitism.
the pro-Palestinian crowd, they're like
The
huge Holocaust
ruling
deniers. They'll tell you
shows the Jewish
that it never happened.
community and all Canadians that there are real
Nobody should be jailed for that
consequences
at
to
all.
spreading hate.
That's ridiculous.
And, you know, so we welcome the ruling. And we're very
That's crazy.
thankful to the North Bay Police and to the Crown for working hard on this case.
Yeah, fuck
Last
that.
month, Poland was sentenced to 9 months behind bars and 2 years probation. We started.
That's crazy.
9 months behind bar.
That's crazy.
For denying the Holocaust.
That's bullshit. I mean, I think I believe it happened, but I don't want someone jailed for if they don't believe it happened. How can you? That's crazy. Like, you have to be able to question. Like, if it actually happened, and I do believe it did, allow people to question it. Like, the truth will stand on itself.
So what's next if I start saying online that the earth is flat? Will I go to jail too because you don't agree? If I say that nobody's ever been on the moon, should I be jailed for that too? And I'm not saying I believe either or I disbelieve either. It doesn't matter what I believe or not.
You can't.
But
yeah,
I
you
should
can't
be
put
allowed
people
to
in
say
jail.
it. Because
That's
if I'm not able to
crazy.
say that men have never landed on the moon, nobody can convince me can ever say that a woman can have a penis. That's how it works, bitch.
No. It's crazy, right? Like, they're allowed to say whatever
Yep.
nonsense they want. DNL says, I would need to see what he wrote to have an opinion. Yeah, I was thinking that too. I would have liked to read the actual tweet, but it seemed like it was mostly Holocaust denial. And like, you know, if it was anti-Semitic in the sense of like kill Jews, especially, you know, the Jew living at this address, I can see that as, you know, I wouldn't have an issue with that. But if it sounds like it's like Holocaust denial, that's not going to 9 months jail. Nobody should be going to jail for speech, period, even whether you agree with them or not.
You know what, man? River to the sea, to the river, from the river to the sea. How many times has that been?
Well, they say it all the
chanted in
time.
Free Palestine. Yet I
And-
don't see. But that guy clearly was a white guy. His last name's
Oh,
like
of course.
Bennett.
Of course.
That dude sounded white. You don't need to show me a picture of that dude. I know that dude's white.
Oh, yeah.
So
All right, guys, we're going to put a pin in there now. Excellent conversation. Great chat with John Carpe of the Justice Center. Guys, if you were tuning in for the first time, please consider becoming a member. That can help support the show, help us bring you this high-quality content every evening. Or you can buy some coffee, which you can see up in the top right-hand corner. Other than that, folks, check us tomorrow, same time as always, 8 p.m. Eastern, and we will see you then.